My point is, I think it's crazy how designer brands have been selling things for thousands when China sell them on and literally they're so cheap. If the Chinese manufacturers are making the same, like the actual Birkins, and then they are also selling these on the side as well, technically this is an absolute fucking bargain because it's the exact same material as a Birkin.
What if everything you believed about the world's most iconic handbag, the Hermès Birkin, was a carefully crafted illusion? What if that $20,000 symbol of status, flaunted by celebrities, fashion editors, and A-list influencers, wasn't handcrafted in a pristine French atelier, but mass-produced behind closed doors in offshore factories? That's the explosive claim at the heart of a massive lawsuit filed in California, one that's threatening to unravel the very foundation of the luxury industry. And the twist? The allegations didn't come from angry customers or nosy reporters. They came from the very Chinese manufacturers Hermès allegedly relied on for years, who are now turning the spotlight back on the brand with damning receipts. For decades, Hermès didn't just sell leather bags. They sold a belief system, the idea that luxury meant heritage, scarcity, and craftsmanship. Consumers weren't just buying products, they were buying their way into an exclusive world, one scarf, belt, or bracelet at a time. But all of that is now under fire. Leaked factory contracts, invoice screenshots, and insider emails are painting a very different picture. One where mass production, supply chain deception, and NDAs allegedly kept the truth hidden. It wasn't just about where the bags were made. It was about how deeply customers were misled. The illusion of made in France is starting to crack, and beneath it lies a story that could reshape the future of fashion. This isn't just another influencer takedown or fashion world controversy. It's a full-blown identity crisis for a brand that built its reputation on silence and scarcity. What was once whispered in niche forums and anonymous TikToks is now being shouted in courtrooms and dissected across global headlines. Consumers feel betrayed, the resale market is teetering, and luxury insiders are holding their breath. Because if Hermès, the gold standard, was allegedly faking its French fantasy, who else is? And what happens to a billion-dollar empire when the truth can no longer be hidden? For decades, Hermès sold more than handbags. They sold a dream. The French luxury house cultivated an image of precision, artistry, and tradition. Their Birkin and Kelly bags were said to be handcrafted by master artisans in serene ateliers scattered across France. Each creation, they claimed, was a labor of love. 30 leather cuts, 20 hours of meticulous stitching. 4 hours spent just on the handle. Customers weren't just buying accessories, they were buying heritage. They believed every detail represented French luxury at its purest. But what if that image was never entirely real? Shocking new leaks are now challenging that legacy. According to internal factory documents and whistleblower statements, Hermès had allegedly outsourced significant parts of its production to Chinese manufacturers, quietly and for years. These weren't generic mass production sites, they were high-skilled workshops operating in silence under ironclad NDAs. Factory workers were reportedly instructed to omit origin tags, erase shipping data, and funnel products through third-party logistics hubs to obscure their true journey. By the time the bags reached Hermès showrooms, every trace of made in China was allegedly wiped away, replaced with the myth of Parisian prestige. Now, in a stunning twist, those same manufacturers, the very hands Hermès depended on to keep its fantasy alive, are the ones tearing it down. They're leaking contracts, exposing internal processes, and revealing what the brand fought hard to keep secret. And for Hermès, the betrayal couldn't have come at a worse time. With lawsuits piling up and public trust crumbling, the brand's carefully constructed image is on the brink of collapse. What was once hailed as the epitome of French excellence may soon be remembered as one of the greatest deceptions in luxury fashion history. It started like any other online rumor, subtle, fragmented, and easy to ignore. A few TikToks with shaky voiceovers, low-resolution screenshots of factory invoices, claims that some Hermès bags weren't actually made in France. At first, it seemed like noise, but then the silence broke wide open. Leaked internal emails, videos of production lines, and images of bags with suspiciously blank tags began flooding social media. Anonymous accounts claimed to be former contractors. Others posted what appeared to be receipts and export logs. One by one, the puzzle pieces clicked into place, and suddenly, what once felt like hearsay began to look like hard truth. According to these whistleblowers, Hermès allegedly went to great lengths to protect the illusion. Factory workers were reportedly instructed to omit Made in China labels, scrub shipping trails clean, and disguise the true origins of their products. It was about more than hiding logistics. It was about preserving the brand's most sacred asset, its French identity. But when Hermès allegedly tried to silence the leaks with legal threats, it backfired. Instead of disappearing, the factories went louder. The quiet murmurs turned into a roar. And what was once a marketing myth had now ignited into a global war for the truth, one where the stakes included not just lawsuits, but the very soul of luxury fashion. They didn't just walk in and request a Birkin. They knew better. They played the game. Some spent thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, on belts, scarves, shoes, and home decor, all in hopes of being deemed worthy of a single offer. Store associates called it building a purchase history. Clients called it loyalty. But behind the velvet ropes, it was really a system of financial hoops dressed up as exclusivity. And when the factory leaks went viral, everything changed. What once felt like a privilege started to look like a scam. That's when the legal backlash began. A class action lawsuit was filed in California, accusing Hermès of violating federal antitrust laws through a practice known as tying. The complaint alleges that customers weren't allowed to buy Birkins outright. They were pressured into purchasing unrelated products first, just to qualify. And this wasn't a formal policy written down in contracts. It was informal, implied, reinforced by the silent choreography of Hermès showrooms and quietly enforced by associates trained to prioritize high spenders. Many consumers had accepted this gatekeeping under the belief that they were being let into an exclusive club. But once they discovered the bags might have been manufactured in China, that illusion shattered. The betrayal hit hard. Customers felt they had been manipulated, not just financially, but emotionally. They believed they were buying a piece of French heritage, handcrafted by elite artisans. Instead, they now feared they were buying into an elaborate marketing scheme fueled by secrecy, status pressure, and offshore labor. And the anger wasn't limited to the price tag. It was about trust. Trust that had been cultivated for decades, only to be allegedly undermined by corporate greed. What once felt like a reward for loyalty now felt like punishment for not asking questions sooner. The moment the factory leaks hit the internet, the luxury world flipped upside down. TikTok became the epicenter of outrage as creators began slicing open their Hermès bags, literally. In real time, viewers watched as influencers dissected handles, examined stitching, and peeled back linings, comparing their five-figure authentic Birkins to ones allegedly made in the same Chinese factories. Reddit became a war zone of whistleblower accounts and forensic analysis. Fashion watchdog pages flooded Instagram with anonymized statements from former manufacturers who claimed Hermès had spent years burying the truth. And then came the viral video that changed everything. A side-by-side comparison of two Birkins, one bought from an Hermès boutique, the other from a Chinese supplier. The difference? None. Same materials, same stitching, same silhouette. But this wasn't just internet speculation or influencer outrage. It was backed by hard evidence. Screenshots of internal email chains, factory contracts, and PDF invoices began circulating online. Users weren't just repeating rumors, they were analyzing digital receipts. Supply chain documents allegedly linked Hermès products to non-European manufacturing hubs. Even longtime loyalists couldn't deny the mounting proof. One content creator who had spent over $100,000 of their own money on luxury handbags said the quiet part out loud. "I thought I was buying history. Turns out I was buying marketing." That quote spread like wildfire, and in that moment, Hermès lost control of the narrative. And the fallout wasn't limited to angry customers. The quote shook the luxury ecosystem to its core. High-end resellers began quietly pulling inventory. Prices dipped on secondary marketplaces. Investors who had treated Birkins as appreciating assets suddenly questioned their entire strategy. Influencers who once flaunted their collections were now filming exposés. Hermès, once untouchable in its quiet opulence, was now being publicly dissected, and not by journalists or lawyers, but by the very people who had built their fortunes around the brand. The internet didn't just expose a scandal, it exposed the fragility of trust in luxury, and for Hermès, that trust was starting to collapse. For years, Hermès made scarcity its greatest marketing weapon. The narrative was carefully constructed. Birkins and Kellys weren't just expensive, they were rare. Handmade by a single artisan, limited in production, only offered to those who were patient, polished, and privileged enough to be chosen. Buyers weren't shopping. They were earning their way into a legacy. Or at least, that's what they believed. But after the factory leaks and insider testimonies, that image of organic scarcity has been shattered. The story of a waiting list? Now, it looks more like a sales funnel disguised as sophistication. According to the class action lawsuit, Hermès didn't just reward loyalty, they engineered it. Sales associates were allegedly trained to monitor customer spending habits and withhold bag offers until clients had purchased a specific volume of non-Birkin products. The goal wasn't to build relationships, it was to build revenue. Scarves, belts, shoes, and even home goods became stepping stones toward unlocking a Birkin. Buyers weren't told this outright. Instead, they were subtly coached, nudged, and incentivized until their purchase history spoke loud enough. In other industries, that's called upselling. In luxury, it was marketed as exclusivity. Now, with the myth exposed and the bags themselves under scrutiny, customers are reevaluating the entire experience. Many feel duped, not just financially, but emotionally. They were led to believe they were joining a tradition, a secret society of style. Instead, they were allegedly participating in a meticulously crafted retail strategy designed to bleed them dry. One viral Reddit comment captured the collective sentiment: "I wasn't being rewarded, I was being farmed." And for an industry that thrives on illusion, the brutal clarity of that realization could be its most dangerous threat yet. Faced with viral leaks, mounting backlash, and a full-blown class action lawsuit, Hermès broke its silence, but not with an apology. Instead, the brand doubled down. In official court filings and press statements, Hermès called the lawsuit meritless, denying any wrongdoing. They claimed there was no coercion, no manipulation, and certainly no forced purchases. According to their legal team, customers were never required to buy anything. They simply needed to show client interest. In other words, if you spent enough, you might be rewarded. But to those who know how Hermès stores operate, that defense didn't just ring hollow, it felt insulting. Anyone who's shopped at Hermès knows the rules aren't written, but they're enforced. You don't ask for a Birkin on your first visit. You build your profile. You make the right purchases. You play the game. Associates don't tell you to buy a scarf. They hint that it helps. They don't deny you a bag. They tell you to come back next season. These aren't suggestions. They're sales tactics masquerading as exclusivity. And now that the truth about alleged offshore production is public, the entire system feels even more deceptive. The issue isn't just the tying, it's the trust. A trust that, according to consumers, Hermès has broken. Even more troubling, Hermès has remained almost completely silent on the factory leaks themselves. No clarification, no transparency, no acknowledgement of the mounting evidence that suggests a long-term outsourcing strategy. Instead, they've tried to redirect the conversation back to tradition and integrity, but for many, it's too late. The brand's refusal to address the heart of the controversy, where the bags are really made, only deepens suspicions. In trying to maintain control, Hermès may have lost something far more valuable than a lawsuit: the benefit of the doubt. And in the world of luxury, once that's gone, it rarely comes back. If Hermès thought this lawsuit would quietly fade away, they miscalculated. Legal experts are already warning that the case could trigger a discovery process, one that would force Hermès to reveal what it's kept hidden for decades. That includes internal emails, training manuals, supply chain documents, and contracts with offshore manufacturers. If those records confirm what the leaks have already suggested, that Hermès knowingly misled customers about where their bags were made, the consequences could be devastating. This wouldn't just be about a misleading label. It would be legal proof of a brand-wide deception. And once those details are on record, the ripple effect won't be limited to one courtroom in California. Luxury shoppers around the world are now watching closely. If American consumers were allegedly misled, what about buyers in Paris, in Dubai, in Tokyo? This lawsuit has opened the floodgates. Global customers, who once viewed Hermès as the gold standard of elegance and honesty, are beginning to ask uncomfortable questions. If Hermès is exposed under US law, it may spark a wave of copycat lawsuits internationally. The resale market is already shaking. Investors are backing off and prices are dipping. The illusion of scarcity is collapsing in real time. And if Hermès is forced to open the books, the fallout could redefine how the entire luxury industry operates. This isn't just Hermès's problem anymore. It's a ticking time bomb for the entire luxury industry. Brands like Chanel, Dior, Gucci, and LVMH are now nervously watching from the sidelines, fully aware that if Hermès, widely considered the gold standard of luxury, gets dragged through the mud, they might be next. Hermès was the brand everyone pointed to when defending price tags that rival down payments. They were the pristine exception in a world of fast fashion and inflated marketing. But now that illusion has been pierced, and consumers are beginning to wonder, if Hermès allegedly outsourced while claiming French exclusivity, who else has been doing the same behind closed doors? Fashion watchdogs, influencers, and even once loyal fans are no longer just whispering, they're digging. The Reddit forums that used to obsess over Birkin color drops are now filled with spreadsheet breakdowns of suspicious pricing trends and supply inconsistencies. TikTok creators who once proudly flexed their luxury hauls are turning their cameras toward the receipts. Literally. The resale bubble is on the verge of bursting, and luxury investors are pulling out fast. What started as one lawsuit has now sparked a global reckoning. Because this scandal isn't just about where bags were made, it's about trust, transparency, and the unraveling of a billion-dollar fantasy that once felt untouchable. The Hermès scandal isn't just about one lawsuit or one factory leak, it's about a broken promise. For decades, luxury was sold as a lifestyle, a quiet symbol of arrival. But that illusion was never built on craftsmanship alone. It was built on silence, on secrecy, on the belief that if you paid enough, waited long enough, and played by the rules, you'd earn your place among the chosen few. But now, the curtain has been pulled back, and what's behind it isn't heritage or honor. It's strategy, marketing, mass production cloaked in mystique. And for thousands of loyal customers, that realization isn't just disappointing, it's devastating. The lawsuit against Hermès may only be the beginning, because once trust is lost, it doesn't just damage a brand, it shakes an entire industry. If Hermès, the gold standard of luxury, was allegedly hiding the truth, who else is next? This isn't the fall of a bag, it's the unraveling of a belief system. And the question isn't whether Hermès can recover. The real question is, will luxury ever mean the same thing again?